going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Viall Files. I am your host, Nick, joined by Amanda, is in studio. Is Allie still with us, or is she online?
Allie is feverishly cutting TikToks.
So yeah, that's what she's doing. We have a great episode for you. The wonderful Emily DiDonato is with us. Emily is someone actually I've been wanting to get on the podcast for, well, even before the pandemic, and then we were in New York, and she lives in New York, and I reached out to Emily, and then we recorded in New York, and she was fantastic and great, and even better than I thought, and I thought she'd be amazing. So a very relatable guest in the sense that she has real insecurities and real dreams, and she's also multi-faceted,
Multi-talented, multi-hyphenate talent.
If you're someone who feels like people, your family, community puts you in a box of whatever that box is, and you think to yourself, I'm more than just that, well, then Emily is a more than a relatable person, as someone who got into modeling early on, and despite what is often thought as glamorous, has her own insecurities and struggles and stereotypes that are thrown her direction. And what a great conversation we've had with Emily to just share some perspective on life. And we couldn't thank Emily enough for joining us. We have a great lineup of shows this week already. Remember, our Bachelor recap is out there discussing the finale. Thoughts on the new Bachelor host, Jesse Palmer, with Manny Gutierrez, and our Ask Nick episode. Here's what the Ask Nick episodes are about. If you find yourself to ever be struggling in a situationship of any kind, and you're confused, and you start wondering why, you've talked to all your friends, they keep giving you the same useless answers because they're making it about them, go listen to Ask Nick's. We got you covered. Trust me.
It's honest advice.
You won't regret it.
Prepare yourself for some honesty.
And you'll feel refreshed. I promise you that. Other than that, I think we've covered it all. Thanks for listening. As always, don't forget to send in your questions at asknick@castmedia.com. Cast with a K for Ask Nick episodes. Subscribe, review, tell your friends. Let's get to Emily. Emily, thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to doing this for a long time with you. I know you and I reached out to you a long time ago about coming on the podcast, and you had a trip planned to LA. We were going to have you on, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And and we just, then obviously life happened for you and us, and it just didn't work out. And then we're here in New York recording, and I thought, you know what? I would love to have Emily finally on the podcast. So here you are.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you remembered. I'm so glad you thought of me. I'm so excited to be on.
Absolutely. I've been a fan of yours. I've been following you for a long time. I love the stuff that you put out there. You're just kind of a very thoughtful, relatable person. And, as someone who's seems to be admired by a lot of people, and you do something, modeling, you're very known for being a model, which comes with a lot of opinions and kind of judgments, both good and sometimes bad. And I think you go about it in a way that's just really nice and humbling, and you're fun and easy to root for. If that makes sense.
That's such a nice compliment.
I'm happy to have you on.
I appreciate that. Yeah, modeling definitely comes with its ups and downs. Try to make the best of it. I've been doing it long enough at this point that I can kind of have fun with it, reflect back on my years, and
How long have you been modeling for?
So I've been modeling since 2008. I was a junior in high school when I started, so very young, and now I'm 30. So it's definitely been a wild ride. I kind of grew up in the industry, so it's been good, but I've definitely learned a lot about myself and other people along the way.
I imagine you must grow up really fast and you had success early on in your career.
Yes, I did. So I started when I was, a junior in high school, and I got really lucky that I became successful quickly in the sense that I was working very early on, for models, they come from all over the world and oftentimes are like stomping the pavement for years before they get like their big break or really start working. And that's really what pushed me to pursue it full time, because I was in that kind of weird space where I was like, am I going to go to college? Am I going to pursue this full time? So I decided to pursue it full time, but absolutely it makes you grow up so fast. I mean, I started traveling like internationally alone when I was like 18 years old. My mom would come with me occasionally, but you're just thrown into so many adult situations, even when you're 17 years old. I just remember always being the youngest person in the room, but expected to act like an adult. And I remember, this is going to make me sound really old, it was like the beginning of when Facebook was getting really big and all of my friends were at school and like partying and posting their Facebook albums. And I was like, I'm here traveling and working and living this super grown up life. And the expectations on me are very grown up and kind of a lot, but at the same time, like, I think it was for the best. I don't know how long I would have lasted, like partying away in college.
Was that at the time where you couldn't have Facebook if you didn't have a college email?
No, it was after that. Like, it was when everyone had Facebook, but it was when everyone posted like their entire life on Facebook. Did you get
a Facebook at that point, or did you get a Facebook?
I had a Facebook, and I was just like, I remember.
So you just saw the FOMO of your friends.
Such bad FOMO.
So much FOMO.
But reflecting on that now, like they were looking at me probably like, you're traveling and like in magazines and in TV commercials, and I was like, gosh, I just wish I was with them in a basement somewhere, like playing beer pong.
Did you ever experience, because I feel like sometimes people in your position who experience what a lot of people dream, and you're living this kind of fantasy life, but we all come from somewhere, so to speak, and we come from, many of us, just regular old USA suburbs or whatever. What was the reception like of your community and your friends, and did you deal with any bullying or criticism for like, oh, I mean, whatever Emily is doing, like, you know, things like that? Because you hear that, and I've seen that, you know, like, we always just assume the beautiful model, tall, gets to do these things, travel the world, life is rose-colored glasses, it's amazing, and that's not always the case. In fact, I actually saw something on the internet recently. I don't know if you saw it. You posted a picture eating a burger, and there was an Instagram account who decided to use that photo as an opportunity to voice their frustration of why models like to post pictures with burgers as if that's some sort of crime. And I know I deal with stuff. It must be frustrating. Did you see that? And like that type of energy you must have dealt with from the beginning. And how have you been able to rise above? Because it's much easier said than done to not let that shit bother you.
Yeah. I mean, luckily I'm from upstate New York, like an hour and a half north of here. And I come from a great family. Like, my dad was a New York City firefighter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. So I think in terms of my community, people were very surprised. They still are. Like, when I walk around our local CVS, they're like, oh my God, like, you're here, the model. And my family and friends, like, they were really excited, but I was still in school when my career really started taking off. Like, I remember I found out that I got signed with a cosmetics brand, Maybelline, when I was a senior in high school, and I was literally on TV, and then I was like going to biology the next day. Like, it was just so weird. Everyone was excited. There was definitely, I think I felt kind of stared at, looked at, but I had a great family. Like, my parents were really like a grounding energy and force for me, because even though it was cool and glamorous, they were very like protective of me. My mom always wanted to be where I was and what I was doing, and luckily she's like a fireball and walks into the room and owns the room and came everywhere with me. So she kind of kept the energy very grounded, me very grounded, and at the end of the day, like, I was still living at home in upstate New York and spending time with my friends from high school playing sports. Like, I played basketball, soccer, and lacrosse. And it wasn't really until I like graduated from high school, moved to Manhattan, started working full time, that I started like really dealing with kind of like the judgments and issues that come with being in the industry from like insiders. But in terms of my community, I feel pretty lucky. I feel like people were pretty understanding, supportive, excited, but still saw me as the girl that I always was growing up, which was like this sporty, normal person.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So, but then when you got social media takes off,
yeah.
What are your points of view when it comes to, I get, so much we talk about body positivity. We talk about, which everything kind of, like great movements bring a lot of awareness to people who aren't normally talked about, right? At the same time, there's sometimes goes too far, like the hypocrisy. Sometimes it's just like, body positivity. And then again, like referencing like someone was shaming you for eating a burger.
I can't believe you saw that. I saw that too. And I was like,
well, that same person had their takes on me. It was like, we were back to back, and the wrath of this person
came for both of us.
Yeah. So I was just like, oh, how neat. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? And are you mindful of, in a world that we live in where everything we say and do can be picked apart? Like if we put anything out in the open, we have to expect anyone who sees it, and they're going to critique it. What are your thoughts on when it comes to, models and the responsibility they might have to the community of healthy habits and expectations around how they look and how they eat? And do you ever feel like, fuck it, can I just live?
Yeah. I mean, in that specific moment with that person, like on one hand, I kind of understand, right? I'll never forget like a million years ago watching Giselle on Jimmy Fallon, and she was talking about how her favorite food was cheeseburgers. And this was a time where I struggled with my body image so much, and with my like diet and exercise and trying to find myself. And I remember just being like, why does my body suck so much? Like, why can't I be like Giselle and just eat a cheeseburger and be able to walk down the Victoria's Secret runway the next day? I do think that there is, something problematic about when models do overly go out of their way to be like, look at everything I eat and I don't work out and, I'm not healthy. For myself, I feel like I try to take a balanced approach to it because genuinely I am balanced. Also, I'm pregnant. So I was like, I'm eating a cheese. I am a model, but I'm also pregnant. Like, have mercy. Like, I'm just trying to enjoy my baby moon over here. But like, generally, I feel like I do post my workouts. I post like kind of what I eat, and it's all very balanced and healthy. And I feel confident sharing that type of content. But I do think there is a responsibility to be honest about that. And I think that there is sometimes weird energy around food and models wanting to act like they eat whatever they want and look a certain way. From my experience in the industry, most models are thoughtful about what they eat, what they do with their bodies. It's not something that's just like they walk in the room and they are perfect. Most models are like crazy athletes, work out constantly, like eat really, really healthy. Whether or not everyone is transparent about that, I would say probably not. But for myself, I feel like I just try to be as honest as possible, even in the times where I gain weight or lose weight or I'm eating a certain way or something has worked for me or something hasn't. But it is definitely like a responsibility, because just like the story I told about when I was looking at Giselle, you don't realize like how much you could be triggering or upsetting someone. Like, I could have upset another pregnant person who thought like, oh, I tried to eat burgers when I was pregnant and gained like 150 pounds. Like, I don't know. But I think just trying to be as honest and transparent.
Yeah, it's tough too, because it could be triggering for someone, but
yeah,
darn if we don't have to like, I don't know if we can go through this world. I'm a big advocate for empathy. And as I get older, I get better and better at empathizing with people, but empathizing with people doesn't always mean doing what they want. Empathizing is just kind of understanding the place where they're coming from. And I think it's a hard place to be, to try to avoid triggering everybody and anyone, at the risk
Absolutely.
of just living your life.
I mean, I get just tons of DMs all the time. I mean, even being pregnant, like I've been really honest about my experience and how I felt, and even how I felt in my body during this time. And I got so many DMs from people being like, you're exaggerating. That's not what it's like. Like, why are you speaking like this? Like, get over it. Quit complaining. I just like respond to people literally one off. And sometimes
Do you?
I do. Yeah.
Wow.
It was so funny the other day at dinner. I told my husband, I was like, yeah, I just like sent this person a picture of me like flipping them off, because I was so annoyed, because I think people forget that it's just me behind there. Like, I'm the one in the DMs. And I do have conversations with people saying like, why does this upset you? Like, why does my experience or my version of this? Of course, their response is always like, oh my God, I never thought you'd respond.
It's always
like, who do you think is behind all this? It's just me.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just have to get that out of my system.
Well, you make a great point too. Like, especially when talking about triggering. I mean, I'll never know what it's like to be pregnant. The little bit I do know, having a mom who's had 11 kids and having friends who are pregnant, is that it could be very different.
Totally.
For
everyone.
A lot of different women. And so they may not have experienced what you're experiencing. It doesn't invalidate what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
But I bet some people are experiencing what you're going through, and it must be nice to have someone like yourself to talk about it.
Exactly. I mean, with pregnancy, with body positivity, with everything I've struggled with in the industry, being honest about all of it, the best feeling or the best moments are when you do get those really long DMs or messages from people who are like, I'm so glad you said this. This is exactly how I felt, and I was never able to say it or articulate it, or like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, I feel like you really understand what I went through. So for me, it makes it all worth it, because if you're honest and you're transparent and it resonates with people and it makes them feel better or heard or understood, then the mission is accomplished for me. But it's of course not going to please everyone.
Have you always been good at having that perspective of?
No.
No. Okay. One of the greatest changes in my life is the day I found Each and Every deodorant. I shit you not. I'm not exaggerating. I am someone who has suffered from being allergic to deodorant for so long, and as a replacement, I was using antiperspirants. It worked. I smelled fine. I didn't break out in rashes, but antiperspirants I knew were so toxic for my body. And I finally found a natural deodorant like Each and Every that allows me to smell great and have the peace of mind knowing that I'm not putting toxic shit on my skin, which is our largest organ, which seeps into our blood and does some crazy shit. And we're not doing that anymore. Anyway, I digress. But the point is, Each and Every smells good. It's a natural deodorant. It's made with 6 simple ingredients. That's right. It doesn't have parabens or other toxics or aluminums that other deodorants have. It has 9 amazing core scents like coconut lime, lavender and lemon, which is my favorite, cedar and vanilla, another go-to for me, and a variety of other seasonal scents too. I can't rave enough about it enough. There's not a person who should be using regular deodorant at all or antiperspirants. And if you're worried about whether it's going to work, or like maybe a natural deodorant is going to, oh yeah, it's natural, but like it's naturally I'm a sweater. I sweat a lot. I'm an active person. I put it on in the morning and I smell great all damn day long. Find out for yourself why Each and Every has over 15,000 5-star reviews. I have an awesome deal for you, my listener. 30% off your first purchase of Each and Every. Just go to my special URL, eachandevery.com/VIALL, and use promo code VIALL30. That's VIALL30. Don't miss out on 30% off. Use promo code VIALL30 at eachandevery.com/VIALL. Article. That's right. Hey, furniture is expensive. It costs a lot of money. And sometimes when we don't invest in furniture and we buy cheap stuff, then we get cheap stuff. But Article meets you right in the middle with great furniture, looks great, beautifully made, and affordably priced. That's right. Why is it affordably priced? Because they cut out the middleman. They have a great online shopping experience. They have Article has a team of designers focused on beautifully crafted pieces, quality materials, and durable construction. As a variety of modern design aesthetics like mid-century, Scandinavian, industrial, and bohemian, and fair prices. That's right, because they cut out the middleman to sell directly to the customer. No showrooms, no salespeople, no retail markups. Such an easy shopping experience. If you if you happen to not like what you want, they make the return policy very easy and customer friendly. I can't recommend it enough. Fast, affordable shipping is available across the U.S. and Canada, and it is free on orders over $999. Article is offering our listeners $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. Go to article.com/VIALL, and the discount will be automatically applied at checkout. That's article.com/VIALL to get $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. And what was that kind of a turning point for you to say, you know what, I can't win with everybody. I'm going to focus on what I do feel good about because I believe in what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think when it comes to like body positivity and like my experience in the modeling industry, I was always really hesitant to share my experience with that because I didn't want to bite the hand that fed me, right? Like, I was always afraid to be honest because I still wanted to work as a model. And I also at the same time, didn't want to place blame on others for my experience or for what I had gone through. But I had reached a moment in my career a couple of years ago where I felt like I had done everything I wanted to accomplish in a way. I felt really secure in myself and also in my career. And I had my YouTube channel and I was really focused on content creation and kind of like my own personal brand more than I was like being worried about getting cast for my next job, which is an awesome and fortunate place to be in. And I just wanted to share my story and do it in a way that I didn't want people to think that I was blaming anyone. I chose to be in this industry, but this is what I went through and this is what I continue to go through. It was something that like, you know, finding peace with my body is not, I mean, every day is different. I'm still on that journey. Now it's a different one. So it definitely took time. But when I was younger as a model, I was like quiet as a mouse. I think part of why I did so well was like I was really good at taking direction, always on time, like always doing the right thing. And, you know, as a model, you're told how to look, how to act, how to dress, like everything. And I was really good at being like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like no boundaries, no no's. Like I was just like, I'm down for whatever. I'll go wherever. But I think time and age helps you realize you're like, oh wait, actually like I don't want to do that and don't feel comfortable with that. But it definitely took a couple of years for me to be more established as like a human and as a model.
Do you think the modeling industry has evolved with the times? And what I mean by that is like, I think from an outsider's point of view, you hear a lot of toxic stories about where some of these, body image issues come from, maybe getting some bad advice or bad expectations about what models need to do in order to get work.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of conversations around body positivity and different size models and different looks. Do you think there's a sincere intent on the industry as a whole, and are you seeing it evolve, or is it still, or is the industry just doing what they think they need to do, but behind closed doors, it's still kind of the same toxic energy? Like, which one is it more closely?
I think it's a combination of both. Like, I mean, it's definitely changed and evolved a lot. There's no, like my mom called me the other day and she was like, I just want to say, I don't ever want to forget how downright cruel people were to you 10 years ago, like me and some of my other model friends. Because you would walk in to a casting and people would be like, too big, too fat, like not for me, ignore you, like just downright awful.
Really?
Oh my God, yeah. And
I've been to like casting stuff. It's not exactly the prettiest of people.
Oh no.
Giving you the notes.
No, like when I look back on it now, I'm like, because I'm so much more grown up now, and I can see them as just like other adults, but I felt like such a kid for so long. I'm like, oh my gosh, those people are on such power trips. Like, who bullies a teenager like that? Like, what have we, like, I think of myself, right? Like, as a 30-year-old woman, if a 17-year-old walked in here right now, like how I would treat them. Like the idea of being like, oh honey, like your outfit is horrible and like you really need to lose some weight, like you should consider giving up carbs. Like that's the kind of stuff people would say to me, like I would never as a 30-year-old woman. But I do think it has evolved in the sense, like I remember like a couple of years ago when Kate Upton was on the cover of Sports Illustrated and I was in sport. That was the first year that I did Sports Illustrated. That was when I felt like I really started to see a change in the industry, meaning like, even though Kate Upton, by all means, is not plus size or anything like crazy, she's like a beautiful girl. Like, you know what I mean? But at the time, it was like groundbreaking that someone like
That's
that.
Silly.
Do you remember though?
I do, but like, for me, like, I guess I'm always been attracted to
right.
women who are more closely look like from a figure standpoint,
right.
Kate Upton, rather than maybe a more traditional model. So I was like, great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, right. But you're right. I remember I didn't follow it that closely, but I do remember it being a thing. How And that is fascinating.
So I felt like after that, things really started to change. I remember I felt so relieved when they put her on the cover because I was like, oh my God, there's hope for us. Like if Kate Upton, like being what she is, like there's hope for us. And then Ashley Graham was on the cover and things started to evolve even more. But I also think that, yes, like brands and the industry they don't really have a choice anymore. They have to evolve because like with social media, everyone has a voice, your customer, your consumer, whoever it is. Like if they don't like what you're putting out there or they don't see someone that resonates with them or looks like them, like they have a place to say that and share that information, which is, I think, a wonderful and beautiful thing about social media. Whereas like, years ago, the Victoria's Secret fashion show would come on TV, we'd all watch it and feel horrible about ourselves and then just go to bed. Whereas now there's like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're all like, by the way, watching that was not my favorite thing ever and, could be better. Here's all the feedback, Victoria's Secret. Like that didn't exist. But so I think brands are forced to evolve, which I think is a really, really good thing. And there has been quite a clean out of a lot of people who were running the industry for a long time too over the years. So I think it's for the best. And I hope it continues to, especially for like young girls entering the industry now,
I was thinking about what you were just saying about like some people giving like the to this or to that. And do you think that experience helped you be far more careful with your words and how you express yourself? You're a tall woman. You're tall. I have a sister who's 6'2". I mean, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a sister who's 6'2". She's my height. And she struggled with her body early on because as a tall woman, people would call her big, simply just referring to her height. I don't know if that's something you ever deal with.
Oh, yeah.
And I can imagine just how damaging or triggering that could be for, again, like a 16, 17-year-old girl. And has that helped you be far more careful? Because again, we now are living in a comment where it's like two sides of the coin. Either don't be so sensitive or, hey, words matter, right? And what are your thoughts on something like that? Who's someone who at a young age, people were throwing just random words that they might not thought anything of, but were very hurtful to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think being in this industry has taught me just, I think like especially in the 2000s, like you look at who was famous then and their bodies and what they looked like the female body was scrutinized in like such a crazy way. For myself, I feel like I just am so thoughtful about how I refer to other people's bodies, how they look in an outfit. Yes, it absolutely has affected that because it's like I think about times where I would show up to set and someone would say to you like, oh my God, you look great. You look so healthy.
Oh.
The
what
worst.
What does that mean?
It's not good. I'll tell you that. It's
I know where
not
my head
good.
would go. Be like, what the fuck? Like, all I want to know is, what did I look like the last time you saw me?
So that means that that's not good.
Yeah.
So like I am definitely thoughtful about how that feels, and especially now, even being pregnant, people and myself also like very sensitive about how people comment on your body. It's so funny though. Women typically don't, but men love to comment on pregnant. Like
what do they say?
They just like come right up in there. Like I feel like women kind of know not to say anything because you don't know where someone's at in their pregnancy, how far along. But men are always like, oh my God, are you having a girl? Like I can tell you're like carrying really big.
What?
I'm like, who told you it was okay to talk like that? Like just don't say anything.
Is this like people in
this is like in the line at the bathroom. Yeah. Like it's just
like a New York thing? Because you hear like New York people are more forward, but like
maybe. But I just feel like I'm definitely thoughtful about how I refer to how other people look. Because even if you go like, oh my God, you look so great. Like, what have you been doing to a girl? If someone said that to me a couple of years ago as a model, I'd be like, well, are you saying like the last time you saw me that I didn't look good? Or like, did I lose weight or I look better now? Like, so you do have to be mindful and thoughtful of that. But I feel like that's very easy to do.
Yeah, I'm shocked by this. As a guy who grew up with sisters, and I think I was lucky to have that perspective, I just say something nice about an outfit they're wearing.
Yeah.
I like your shirt. Beautiful dress.
Yeah.
That can come and go.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Less is more.
Just, I really like. Really love your outfit today.
Yeah,
What a
exactly.
dream.
That's
it.
great. I'm sure having sisters like that really is beneficial for you in that sense.
You talked about obviously your YouTube channel, and you've grown such an amazing platform on YouTube, on really all things social. You're with the times. You have a TikTok now.
Yes.
You're crushing it. With conversations I've had with models in the past, there's always the clock. There's a window. Obviously it's a very kind of ageist industry.
Yeah.
Certainly there are models who stand the test of time and can work throughout the years, but that's not the norm. Mm-hmm. And was that part of the reason why you got into this? Was it to say, I don't know what's next and this is how I might pivot? Because like you said, you've really built a brand for yourself, and now you have your brand Covey, skincare. I'd love to hear more about that. But before we get into that, what was like the catalyst, or did you just fall into it? Like, how did you decide to build this? Because not every model has done what you've done.
Yeah. I mean, I think, this was like 2014, 2015. I think influencers started to become a thing in the fashion industry. And I remember people were so mad about that. Like, fashion people were like, ugh, influencers sitting front row at Fashion Week. Like, that's so ridiculous and silly and awful. And I just remember a time where I would just be like, okay, like clearly the times are changing. Influencers are literally taking models' jobs, which they were. They were being signed for like cosmetics contracts and like doing fashion jobs. And everyone else was so mad about it. And I was like, all right, let me just see what these people are doing. Like, what is this all about? And I was kind of like, I can do that. That's how I always am with anything on the internet that I see or I'm inspired by. I'm like, I can do a version of that. Like, what's stopping me from doing that?
So instead of hating on it, you just decided to learn about it.
Exactly. It's like, I don't know. Like, I was just like, I think I can share my story in that way. I can share my everyday makeup tutorial. Like, I can figure that out. I think I also had a want to do that as well because I loved being a model. I had been a model already for quite a few years, but it always felt so two-dimensional to me. I always felt a little bored and frustrated. I won't lie. Like, when I'm on set, I count down like until I can leave. Unfortunately, like I'm like, how many more outfits? Like, when is it? Just even on the best day, like it's super hard to get engaged. I'll put it that way. Like, because you're just being told where to do, what to do, where to go. And I'm always kind of like, okay, like can't wait to go home and do like what I want to do. So I had this craving to do more. I had always been like a creative person. And I always felt like whenever I would meet people in person, they would be like, oh my God, I never expected you to sound the way that you do. I thought you were like Brazilian or something else. And I'm like, no, I'm like American. My point being that like, no one knew who I was or what I sounded like or what I was all about. And all of these influencers were leveraging social media to basically just share who they were and what they liked on the internet. And I was like, I can definitely do that too.
I can just share my opinion.
And like share the modeling version of that. Like, here's what I wear to work. Here's my makeup. Here's behind the scenes. And it just made my actual work, meaning it made modeling and my life so much more fun and interesting. And I got to capture all of these moments and behind the scenes and like traveling and all of this stuff. It made it feel much more purposeful and much more fun for me actually, which I think really like kept that engine going.
Yeah.
So that's why
it like more intention.
Yeah. Like I wasn't just like every time I was like on an airplane or going somewhere with someone on set, I'd be like, let's film something. Let's do something together. Like, let's show this for the camera. People will love to see this. So I had my own like story to tell outside of just being the chameleon on set for other people. And I just found that so fulfilling and fun. And I loved like all the post-production of it, especially with YouTube. I loved editing. I realized I loved doing all of that stuff more than I even like being in front of the camera. So that's how I kind of evolved into it. And even still with TikTok, it's the same. Like at first I was like, oh man, like what are these kids doing? Like, what is this? And I'm like, all right, I just got to figure out my own version of this. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll figure it out.
I love that. That's great. I mean, you're clearly a doer.
Yeah.
And I love the way you attack these kind of challenges. And like the biggest thing that I get out of it from you is it's very easy to hate on. You talked about like you see people have success, whatever it is, especially if it's almost feels like to your detriment. Like if you're a model and you feel like you lost a job out to an influencer or whatever that means, easy to just hate on them. But I love that instead of focusing that energy or using the kind of hating energy, you took that energy and use the curiosity energy of learning about it. And it seems like it certainly has not extended your career, but allowed you to pivot into a whole different career more specifically.
Yeah, I think like it wasn't, I wasn't thinking so much about my age at the time where I was doing it, but more so like, what am I interested in? What's going to like keep me engaged? But yeah, I think you're totally right. Like not hating on the times and what's happening. Like the most recent version of that, and I posted something about this on TikTok, was everyone was so mad that influencers were at the Met Gala and they were upset about that. And I'm just like, guys, are you like watching what's going on in the world?
Exactly.
Like, where are you asleep? Like, it's like these people are more relevant than some of the actors and actresses and people that like maybe we looked up to, but it's like people don't care about that.
The times have changed. Yeah. And it was, like you said, like I was fortunate enough, and I think we're similar that way, is that like when I first went on TV, social media existed, but it wasn't what it is now. And so I kind of learned about it while I had the opportunity to like have this platform or experience on a show. And for me, it was always like, yeah, I don't know what this is going to be. And I was always like, I was very cautious and self-conscious about not being dumb about it, I guess, or not thinking it was a sure thing. I was like, I don't know what this is, and it might be an opportunity, but it's unclear, right? Like I was like, maybe I'll come and go, and that's fine. And then I was thinking about this, kind of like what you said too. It's like the reality of the world, whether we like it or not. Back in the day, our celebrities, the movie stars, whatever, part of the appeal was the mystery behind them. That they would only do interviews when they're promoting a movie, and other than that, you really wouldn't know much about them. And that was the excitement. And with the rise of social media and Twitter, and you started having some of these celebrities saying, you know what, I'm going to, like you, embrace this thing. It wasn't about the mystery anymore. It was about like the relatability. Being relatable became the currency, not the mystery behind it. And so with that kind of change now, and then you have things like people with phones being what they are, people are watching less TV, we're watching shorter content. And this is the new norm, like say what you want. Doesn't care about it's kind of like the old white man kind of thing. We'll always criticize the old white man of like, oh, I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very much, like your Met Gala thing. It's like, you don't have to get it. You don't have to like it.
It's happening.
It doesn't make it not very interesting and relevant to a lot of people. 'Cause that is why they're there. And yeah, you can get so much more done if instead of using your energy to hate on something you don't understand, maybe just taking a moment to say, that's where the empathy comes in, of saying, well, clearly I don't get it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I don't get. But instead of being like, that's stupid, why don't you say, I'm curious why other people do get it? What is the draw? What is the appeal? And to your point, that's how you literally started figuring out what your thing is, because maybe you've done a TikTok dance or two, but that's not how you've risen or used your TikTok. It's not to just do the TikTok trends and dances. You've applied those skills into something that's yours.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think even with the Met Gala thing or with TikTok, it's like you can judge it, you can hate on it. But the beautiful thing about, TikTokers being at the Met Gala to me is like, now anyone can break into fashion and go to like the most exclusive event in the year. Really think about it, like if you really wanted to do that, you could find your way and like get huge on TikTok and like do it. Like you can do that. And I think that's cool because for a long time, fashion was extremely exclusive. Like it was just bred off this idea that like you had to look a certain way, be a certain way, like in order to be included. And now it's not like that. So I think it's cool.
And I think what TikTok more than anything has done, and I talked about this with our guest last week, Rod, is that you're seeing a lot of people have the access now to be more creative. There's a lot of people who are more creative than they are anything else and didn't feel like they could tap into that because they wanted to make some money, And now social media, whether it's your full-time job, you can now tap into your creativity through this platform and have a chance for other people to enjoy it. And then if it really pops, who knows? You could be like doing something that you always thought you could do, but never thought you had the access to do it.
Exactly.
Because now you can make a short movie from your home.
Exactly. And a lot of people will watch it.
And a lot of people will watch it. And they might more people might watch it than the indie film with a $200,000 budget.
Exactly.
That's pretty great. So skincare.
Yeah.
Covey is your company. How'd you get into that? I guess that must be something that might come with a lot of opportunities for inspiration, because, well, it's not just women who struggle with unhealthy skin, men too. I was lucky enough that I didn't deal with a lot of acne when I was in high school, but I dealt with some, and it's your worst nightmare, getting a pimple in high school and even in adulthood. And obviously, you being pregnant and like women's bodies are changing and hormones, that affects people's skin. Again, how did you get into it, and what are some of the kind of inspirational moments you have found from being a part and starting Covey?
Yeah. So we started Covey because I had genuinely felt confused and overwhelmed by skincare. Being in the industry for a long time, my skin was kind of everything. And I came from this school of thought that like more was more when it came to skincare. And I think we all are coming from that world a little bit. K-beauty was really big. People were doing 10 plus steps in their routine. And then after a lot of research on Reddit, my skincare addiction, Twitter, on my own social platforms, I found that everyone else was also very confused about 3 key questions, which were, what products do I actually need in my routine? Do they work together? And what order am I supposed to use them in? So that's really what we solve with the Covey routine. All of our products are clean and non-toxic, and we're formulated to work together. And we partner with a dermatologist to do it. We really just wanted to simplify skincare. We found that like routines, especially during the pandemic, are just so grounding for people and so important for people. Skincare for myself always made me feel so good and so confident when I would do it, but I never felt like I was getting it right. Like I was like, am I doing all the right steps? Like I'm just putting all this stuff on my face. And I would go to work and my skin would be like falling off my face, and makeup artists would be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, I'm using all the fancy stuff. Like, I don't understand why this isn't working. When it turned out I was just doing way too much. My routine was all out of whack. So that's why we created Covey. And it's just a simple 3-step routine that was formulated to work together. And we've had a great response so far. But, going back to what we were saying earlier about instead of like hating on other people, like that element of curiosity was such a huge part of creating Covey. Like even with my own social platforms or just scouring the internet for comments, questions, Twitter, Reddit. When myself and my business partner like started thinking about this, we were like, look at all of these questions that people have about skincare. Like we could help them if we can create this simple 3-step routine, which was really great. And we've had an awesome response so far. And it's just been so nice for me because like I was saying earlier, I've been a model for a long time, a chameleon for a lot of other people. And now it's like, I'm kind of in the driver's seat and get to share how I want to share and be on the creative side and all the calls and really call the shots, which is exciting and like a huge confidence booster. Also a lot of imposter syndrome along with that.
Also, what do you mean?
I mean, I think like, cause I'm on these calls like all the time. And I think people assume they're like, oh, she's like the model or like whatever, like the celebrity who's associated with this brand. And I'm like, no, this is like all I do. Yeah. Like this is like all I care about and I feel so passionate about. And I think I still in the back of my head, like I get like, I am just a model. Like I didn't go to college. Like, these people probably have dealt with like a million businesses or know how to do this. So getting over that has been like so hard for me. Like my business partner, when I say like 2 sentences on a call, she's like, oh my God, you did it. Like on G-Chat, she's like, great job, great comment. She's the best. But it is hard for me because I have that fear of like just being a model and maybe my opinion or thought or experience is not as valid. But I think a lot of people like deal with that.
Yeah, I think they do. Do you think a lot of models do? And do you think maybe it's also something that women struggle with too, just from a society standpoint? There's definitely a lot of, again, whether it's toxic masculinity or just our society's, how we've treated women and their opinions in the past. And it hasn't been, honestly, we only been progressive about this stuff, not as long as we should have, but yeah, do you think it comes from that? A little
Yeah,
bit?
I do. I mean, I've shared on my Instagram that I've struggled with this like imposter syndrome, and I was flooded with DMs from other women and people who work in offices and deal with the same thing. And it's funny because some of them were like, I'm always so afraid to speak up, but then I listen to what some of the men say on calls and how long they go on and on and on about things that are just irrelevant or stupid or have nothing to do with this, which gives me the confidence to then say like what I think. I think as a model, because you're so used to being told what to do and how to be for so long, speaking up and being like, no, actually, I think this was like, it is still to this day something I work on in therapy, like so hard for me because I'm like, why would anyone care what I think or my experience? But I do think like I've been on many calls with many men and women, and some people do take the reins who maybe shouldn't, or their experience or what, or actually maybe my experience is 100% more valid than this person. But it's just something that's definitely drilled into me that I'm working on.
So you mentioned therapy.
Yeah.
Are there anything specific, like in the moment, that you've, like a tool or used or advice you'd give someone that when they feel that doubt, self-doubt,
Yeah.
is there anything you do that makes you say, fuck it, I'm going to say what I want to say?
Yeah, actually, my therapist gave me, I feel like it was a very good piece of advice. She said, I want you to envision before you get on a big call or whatever it is, someone saying like, wow, Emily, that was a great idea. Before it even happens, just keep picturing other people on the call, other people you're with saying, wow, that's such a great idea. And I do feel like kind of manifesting that and picturing that does really help me. And then when it does happen, it's like stars in my eyes. Like I'm like, oh my God, someone thinks I have a good idea. But just picturing that and kind of manifesting that, I think is really helpful.
No. As far as skincare, what are some just basic takeaways if someone were to just listen? I know you try to make it easy, you got your 3 steps, but what are some things that why maybe someone would be interested in looking into Covey who's tried it all,
Yeah.
struggling with their skin? What are some things that you guys really advocate for?
Yeah. So I mentioned the simplification. So one thing that I mentioned earlier was that people didn't know what order they should use their skincare routine. So the 3 products that we created are named in the order that you should use them in. So if you ever feel confused about the order you should use them in, we have our first of all cleanser, next up vitamin C serum, and last but not least moisturizer. So that's one thing, like just to, if you ever feel confused about that, like we've got you. We also partnered with a dermatologist, Dr. Julie Rusak, to make sure that we were using high quality ingredients that were made to be used together. So that was a question that we saw come up so much that people did not know which products paired with what. So really ensuring that our products were made to be used together was super important for us. And then of course is always that it's clean, it's non-toxic, no parabens, sulfates, dyes, fragrances. So those are like the few key things that I feel like if you want to get, it's actually perfect for someone if you're like just getting into skincare and you're like, I don't know where to start, or for someone who's like, I just need to pare it back, like I'm doing too much. It kind of fits both of those people.
And is there like a website where can people find it?
CoveySkin.com.
Great. We talk a lot about relationships and dating on this
Yeah.
podcast. I assume the dating life of a model has some fascinating stories and some life lessons. Back to like when you were just getting started and you were living this kind of adult life as a late teen, what are some things that you've learned, or if anything at all, like how did that kind of shaped you into, you know, you're happily married now, baby on the way. Yeah. How did you go? Like, what was that like? I guess open-ended question.
So, I mean, I just remember when I first started dating in New York, especially when I first moved here, like there's a lot of people who want to date, a lot of men who want to date models simply because they're models. Like,
So I can be like, I'm dating a model.
yeah, there's so many people like that. Like all you have to do is like have a comp card and they're like, perfect, sign me up. And I think just generally as a model, this isn't even just for dating. There are a lot of people who are attracted to like how glamorous it seems and just kind of want to latch onto that. And it's funny, like, and there are also people who want to latch onto it because like models do well. They can do really well. And there were definitely a lot of people who are attracted to that. which was very interesting. But I always veered very much away from people like that, especially anyone that I could tell, like, who just, like, I was like, oh, this is just like an ego boost for you. Like, you're not interested in me or who I am or what I'm about. You just want to say that you're dating a model, and it could be anybody.
Do you feel like, again, on our show, we talk about boundaries so much, right? And it's hard to figure out what your boundaries should be. It's even harder to enforce those boundaries. And the story you just told, it's got to be hard for anyone to say, you don't like me, you like this thing I have access to. Mm-hmm. And that can be a very humbling thing to even admit to yourself, let alone the person you're dating. Where did you find that ability to, even as a model, to say, wait, because it would be very easy for you in someone in your position to lie about that. Mm-hmm. To like, I like him, I want to like him, I want him to like me. And maybe your gut's even saying something's off, all those things you just recognized, but we'll just ignore that. And where did you find that kind of self-awareness and strength to admit that to yourself first before you even confronted them?
Yeah, I think, like, I don't know, like, I feel like I have great parents who've been together since they were like 15 years old, like a genuine love and partnership and marriage. I know what a good marriage looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think that when I was approached in situations like that, and it can be like, sometimes it was like a slimy like guy, and sometimes it is people who are like also in the entertainment industry who are just looking to like check a box. But if it didn't sit right in my heart and my soul, like, I just knew that it wasn't right. Like, when I met my husband, like, he couldn't care less that I was a model, didn't really understand it, like, whatsoever. His idea of what a model was like girls who were out at nightclubs till like 6 a.m. that he would see. And I'm like, Kyle, like, that's not what I would do or any of us do. But yeah, I think, like, I just was automatically turned off by that because I always, even from a young age, wanted a genuine connection with someone, and I wanted to feel heard and nurtured and loved. And I didn't want them to be like, oh, you're a model, it's so cool, like, can I come to a photo shoot with you? Like, it's just, that's so gross. It's just like not the kind of person that I'm attracted to, I guess. Sure. That it's kind of part of it too.
What was something in your dating life before you got married that was a life lesson that you learned about love, relationships, yourself, that you now carry forward into your marriage?
That's such a good question.
Thanks.
Oh, can you answer it first?
Sure. Well, something that I've realized that I've gotten better at, interestingly enough, is that, as a guy, and this is maybe from a man's perspective, is that I've always really liked, me specifically, that's not everyone, but I've dated women with big personalities. I've always been drawn to that. And when you do that at an early age, that can mean a lot of different things. I've also been a guy who, wanted to emulate my father, who was always very attentive to my mother. And so, whether it's the get a glass of water, and I was wanted to do that. And then also the big personality would sometimes, when we fought, could turn a little toxic, right? And I think as a guy, there's the macho, like, I can take it mentality. And so when I recognize as older that when I was younger, if I was dating someone and she didn't like what I did, and she would say, like, you're such a fucking asshole, and I would just laugh it off. I would just be like, whatever, I wouldn't say anything. If she talked to me in a way that I didn't like, I would brush it off like no big deal. And that builds, I use the shavings make a pile thing a lot, but that can work with negative things too. And I've learned now and like, Natalie is amazing. She's great and so kind and talks to me in great ways. But what I've learned is that that's still not a reason not to still say, as great as Natalie is, and she's wonderful, that if she speaks to me in a way, even if I don't think she means anything by it, even if it's just like, even if it's maybe justified, maybe not in the moment, but I still find the time to stand up for myself and say, I don't like how you talk to me. And I don't like, can we not talk that way to each other? And dealing with it when it's not an issue, when it's not something that's a problem for us, is way easier to deal with that as opposed to being dismissing it and then finally just being like, I fucking hate how you talk, and they're like, whoa, out of nowhere. And like, because like you allowed them to call you an asshole
right
every time they were mad. And you're just like, I'm not an asshole. Stop calling me a dick, And that's something I've had to learn.
That's a good one. I mean, I think like in hearing you say that, mine is similar, I guess, in a different way. Like, I think when I was younger, and I think a lot of girls and women deal with this, like I dated people and I was always so concerned with them liking me and being like almost like I wasn't almost being honest with who I was or what I wanted. Speaking up has always been and is really difficult for me. So I think like in previous relationships, I was just always so concerned with making sure my partner was happy. And if they were happy, I was happy. And that was always my mentality. Like, no. And I still do this with my husband. And he's like, Emily, just tell me what you want. Because I'm like, well, I would way rather see you happy and me get my way, like than me get my way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it totally bites you in the ass because it builds up and you should just be honest about what you want. And then that person getting what they want all the time, like it creates this like uneven dynamic.
I'm not so happy about this anymore.
Yeah. Like I always get to a breaking point and like act super weird in situations. Like I'll go along. I am pretty go with the flow and I'll go along with things. And then it's not until I'm like so uncomfortable and I'm so built up. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave and be super dramatic about this and like ruin this entire experience because I wasn't honest like up front. But I think like in general, it's like, it's a beautiful thing to want your partner to be happy and like please them. But it makes for a much healthier and happier relationship when you're both just like open and honest about like what you want and what you're trying to achieve in the moment, in life, like generally.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer. How'd you meet your husband?
So I met my husband on a flight from New York to Denver.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
fun.
Yeah.
I think people always fantasize about meeting someone cute on a flight. It never seems to go that way. So how exciting for you?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we sat next to each other. We were both flying to Colorado for work. I was going to shoot the cover of Vogue Australia, and he was going for like a ski trip with some work people. And we sat next to each other, and we had a lot in common. We were both from upstate New York. We lived on the same block in New York. We had mutual friends in common. So we had like a lot of weird kind of meeting points. And after that, I mean, he continued to call me quite a bit after, and I was really busy with work and like traveling, which I think like set up for a good situation. Because then when I was finally like, okay, I'll meet you, like you can come to my birthday in New York, which is what happened. Then after that, we were pretty much together ever since. It was like very quick.
Did he like ask for your number on the flight? Like how did he shoot his shot?
It's so funny because he did ask for my number. He was just like, oh, put your number in my phone. And then I automatically like did that and just texted myself like Emily D. And he was like, Emily, you totally wanted me. Like you gave me your number like right away. And I'm like,
okay.
But I'm so casual with that. I was like, no, I was just like exchanging numbers. But he was very persistent. I will give him that, which he is generally as person. So it worked out great.
How do you think? I'm a persistent person, but from a woman's perspective, what's the right way for men to be persistent? Because now that's a very fine line between being persistent versus respecting the fact that someone might not be interested. From a woman's standpoint, what would you like to see men get better at? And when it comes to being persistent and like, I think as men, sometimes we're like, do you still want us to be persistent or should we just like, I think like from that experience, and I think generally it's like, if you meet someone and you feel like you're hitting it off with them,
when Kyle and I met on this airplane, I didn't feel like he was hitting on me, even though he claims he was. But we had a genuine conversation about our lives growing up, our family, our work. I didn't feel like he was hitting on me or encroaching on my space. We were just having a nice conversation. And I think for any guy who's out there and you're at a bar, like, you don't need to make a move or have like this suave line. Like, just treat women like humans and learn about who they are and where they're from and what they enjoy. Like, you don't need to impress them or hit on them or anything like that. And I think that was something that with my husband, I was like, oh, he's such a nice guy. Like, I really enjoyed talking to him, and I felt safe around him because, like, I didn't feel like he was like trying to get anything from me. We just had a nice conversation. So I feel like for anyone out there, it's like, just don't do that.
And so when you say he was persistent, did you first not want to go out with him when he asked?
Because it was such a nice conversation, so like platonic, and I didn't feel like he was hitting on me. I was like, why does this guy, like, he just like really wants to like hang out with me? I genuinely didn't think he wanted to like date me.
Oh, interesting.
His intentions just didn't feel romantic at first, which I think for me was a good thing. Because I think if right off the bat I felt like he wanted to like date me, I'd be like, oh God, like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And he took an interesting approach. He called, and I would then text him and say, like, did you just call me? Like, why is this guy?
Hey, you weirdo.
Why are you calling me? But I think eventually when we did meet up, and we started talking and like hanging out, then he made his intentions very clear, that he wanted to like be in a relationship. But yeah, I think in terms of the persistence, I wouldn't have texted him back or been like, oh, what's up, if I had been weirded out by him in any way. So I feel like if guys are doing that to you and you don't want to hear from them, like, just block them immediately.
Yeah. Great. I love that. This has been fantastic. Love talking to you. Really love your thoughts on everything you shared. Before we let you go, I love to play a game with my guests called Do You Know Me? We are remote, but we have Amanda submitting our Do You Know Me questions.
Okay.
Are you down to play?
Yeah.
It's real simple.
Okay.
Has Emily done this or that? If you are, anecdotal stories are welcome.
Okay.
You don't have to. Simple yes or no's. And we'll go from there. Do you know me with Emily DiDonato? Does Emily consider themselves an extrovert or introvert?
Introvert. I like being social, and I like have to be for my job and my work, but I definitely restore by being alone, like with the shades drawn, like watching Bachelor in Paradise.
Is Kyle more extrovert or introvert?
He is more extroverted.
Okay.
You wouldn't think that.
You find that to be a nice...
Yeah, it's a nice balance. I feel like people would think that he was more introverted because he comes across a bit more like quiet and stern, and people think because of my work I'm like, hello everyone, and I'm like, no, it's just my job. But then, like, in terms of how I restore or like spend my time when I can, it's definitely not like at a raging party.
Great. Question number 2. A little more invasive. It's going to require a little more honesty, potentially.
Okay.
Has Emily ever gone into Karen mode with customer service? Not maybe even full on Karen, but hey, do you remember a time where you're like, okay, I probably was a little like, they're just doing their job and I feel bad?
No, I actually don't think I have Karen mode in me. I'm not even just saying that.
I actually
to be
believe
cool.
that. You seem really quite kind.
I think if anything, if I get frustrated in a customer service moment, I just like cry, not because I like, I'm just like, why are you trying to ruin my day? Help me.
All right. Does Emily listen to true crime podcasts?
No, I do not.
Really? Not into... That was a very definitive, quick answer.
Yeah, that's not really like... It's just kind of dark, and I prefer kind of like lighter
No serial
content.
killers for you.
No lighter content. I love your podcast, of course, and
Very kind of you to say.
but not that.
Okay. A little bit of pop culture and history in this question. Can Emily name all 4 members of the Beatles?
No. Do you guys think I'm that old? Who submitted these questions?
No, you don't have to be old. They're
John
legendary.
Lennon.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and George. What's his last name?
But I feel less bad. You guys don't know either.
George Harrison. Oh. George Harrison. Yeah, I don't. That's not an age thing. Does Emily prefer TikTok over Instagram? The big debate.
I would say I spend more time on TikTok. I will say it's just a little bit more entertaining, but I feel like my attention span is officially like a goldfish because of it.
Yeah. Do you feel like every time you're on TikTok and then you pop over to Instagram, it's like going to the party that you didn't want to go to?
Yeah, I do feel like Instagram has gotten a lot more boring, unfortunately.
Step it up.
I know.
I'm going to say this is a yes. Has Emily ever sobbed in public?
Oh my God, yes. Who hasn't? I need to know who doesn't at some point in your life.
Well, if you count TV, I certainly have.
Yeah, you've taken it like another level.
Does Emily have any unusual talents? No's fine. I don't.
I was gonna say, like, do you? Like, what is it?
Wait, don't you have?
Can you sing
you're like
or
super
something?
flex. Natalie, I'm talking to Natalie, my girlfriend. She's in the room. Oh no, and Natalie absolutely has a hidden talent of some kind. She has a photographic memory, at least to the point where, and I'm not exaggerating, she knows every word to every song. If she hears it once, it locks in, and she knows all the words.
That's almost like a different kind of like photographic memory.
It's like
something with music.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Has Emily ever made a first move on a guy? Have you ever shot your shot?
Yeah, I definitely have. Yeah, I think I did when I was younger. But I think like my approach to that was just like going out of your way to talk to someone that you want to talk to. Like,
have you ever been rejected?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Yes. Mm-hmm. Don't love that. Didn't then. Yeah. And it sucked, but it was also like, it is what it is, right?
It's a very healthy thing. I
think
everyone
you
needs the
need
experience. Yeah. Has Emily ever gotten grounded?
I was such a no.
You never got grounded?
No, I was so good. And I felt like I was so honest with my parents too, like about what I was doing and what I was up to. And I was the youngest. And I feel like by the time I came around, they were just like, I was just like, tell them, I'd be like, oh, by the way, like I did not sleep at that person's house last night. I actually went to a party and did this. And my parents would be like, what? Like, why did you lie? And why are you telling us this now? And they'd be like, let's not do that anymore. And I'd just be like, okay.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, they just sent us a new question.
Okay. I'm scared.
I'm going to think the answer is no here. Although, because like you and Natalie are similar, and like Natalie's very like calm energy, except that I would say yes to Emily for this, to Natalie for this next question. And the question is, because like Natalie, the caring question, like Natalie's so kind and so empathetic to like everyone in the world. However, the question is, has Emily ever had a moment of any kind of road rage? And I would say, Natalie, like you see a little like aggression, a little bit come out when she's driving sometimes.
It's hard. It's hard. Yes, for sure. I am such a bad driver. And actually, this weekend we were driving to a wedding in New Jersey, and I took one wrong turn and costed us an additional 2 hours in the car. And
you and Kyle.
Yeah.
How did he handle that?
Oh, he was screaming and I was also screaming, but he was like on the phone working, and I did that. And I just I literally grabbed the steering wheel, and like, I was like, if anyone in the cars going by sees this like pregnant lady like this, like sobbing, like banging on the steering wheel, but that's not really road rage. It was like my own mistake that I was so mad at myself about, but I definitely let it out in the car sometimes.
I mean, you just described
it was so upsetting.
Well, not only that, but like that's why like that is one of those like honest mistake moments that like he's gonna have a reaction to, but like
and he was in the bridal party or the groomsmen party, and I made him late to it, and like that just triggered me in so many ways, like being late, don't like that. Like there was lots of tears. Rageful tears.
Final question.
Yeah.
Does Emily still have any belongings, clothing, old letters from an ex of any kind?
And luckily, none of my exes really had anything that like worth keeping. I think I have like one photograph upstate at my parents' house that an ex took. A really nice framed photograph. And that, I believe, is it.
I'm a big believer in not feeling like you have to throw away all those things to appease your current or new relationship, because at some point when you find your person and let me know if you agree or disagree, and you get married and you have a family and you have like a truly meaningful, real love that has a true foundation, you won't care about those little things. And those are just memories of your life that got you there. And you'll want to look back and read a letter you wrote to someone else, or that someone wrote to you that doesn't mean anything at all to you now, other than like that was your life. Actually, like a time machine. Those things what do they used to call those things? You'd bury it with some memories and you dig it up.
Yeah. Like, my husband and I both have massive clear memory boxes. So I lied. I totally have old things from exes and people. And so does he.
Yeah.
Ours are like stacked on top of each other. It's like, it's just like moments from your life.
It's not about, you're not over them anymore.
No.
It's just, and maybe sometimes to get over someone, you should like give those to your parents or get rid of it. Don't like, so it's not there. But yeah, I think sometimes in new relationship where there's some insecurity and newness, and especially if you came out of an old relationship and you're like, you dated for 6 years and how will I compare to them? And then you just start being like, well, why are you wearing that watch if they gave it to you for your birthday? You're just like, fuck, I don't know. It's a nice watch or something. And I just I think that's something young couples should try not to do. Emily, what a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for coming. I really have enjoyed talking to you. Please let my audience know where they can follow you and all your platforms. Just remind them of all your websites, and they can enjoy all the things you're putting out there.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, just Emily DiDonato. Covey is just Covey on Instagram, or coveyskin.com. Come say hello. I read my DMs like I mentioned earlier.
And sometimes respond, and you might get a photo of you getting flipped off.
Exactly. Be careful.
With an invite. Thanks so much, Emily, again. And thank you guys for listening. If you are new to the show, just tuning in to listen to Emily, we do 3 shows a week. We do a relationship Q&A with people call in, share their stories, and we give them an honest interpretation of their situation that helps give them more of an empowered feeling going forward. If you're into that sort of thing, I think you'll quite love that. We do interviews with other public figures like Emily on Wednesdays, and we recap all things Bachelor if you're into that sort of thing whenever it is on. Thanks for listening. As always, don't forget to subscribe, review, rate 5 stars. Until next time, we will see you on Monday. Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos like our Mondays Ask Nick for your favorite relationship stories and advice, and our Tuesday Bachelor recaps. See you next time.